Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it is going to be a hot one today. They already have heat warnings out for today. It's if you live in the Ozarks, Missouri, Arkansas, that area. Yeah, it's going to be a warm one. Maybe not quite as bad as it was a couple of weeks ago, but definitely getting up there. So we've had a cool break, that false fall. And so don't let it get you off guard, getting out there and forgetting, oh, wait a minute, it's hot today. I should probably drink some more water and maybe take a little bit of a break out of the sun if possible. So watch that. Heat-related illnesses and stuff can come on very, very fast. If you are still interested, our new t-shirts, limited run t-shirts that my wife and I have designed, I've shown them a few times. The Yeshua one, my wife has one that says, Daughters of the Most High. She made hers, I made mine. Hers is, I think, better than mine. She's smarter than me, so might as well make a shirt that's better. But anyways, you can go to the link down in the comment section below. We've teamed up with Sanctified Supply Company and to make a limited edition run of those t-shirts that we both came up with. So those are available while they last. Speaking of picking stuff up you might want, if gold is looking like it's going to go up. Oh, well, it is. It hit a record high yesterday. But up in a different way because the White House has announced a new tariff on gold importation. Now, this tariff is on kilos, the big bars, right? Not the big bars, but not the ones you see in the movies, that they look like a cinder block or something, but the typically big bars of gold. The vast majority of that kind of gold, or a lot of gold, it's imported from Switzerland. Not so much because they mine it there. That's where they actually make the bars. But anyway, so a tariff has been placed upon gold. And you might say, well, I'm not planning on importing and buying any kilo bars or 100-ounce bars of gold anytime too soon because I'm not a millionaire. Well, most of the gold that you find here in the United States, the little grams and the ounces and rings and everything else is manufactured from those gold bars. That's like the raw material. It's like a company here in the United States, importing steel from China so that they can take that raw steel and turn it into something. So expect to see things go up because it's not necessarily like a gold confiscation that we saw back, almost 100 years ago. But I think there's something to it, restricting people's purchasing of gold, or at least trying to. It's just, I don't like it. I think it's another way to devalue money. Once this sets in, it's very possible that we could see gold prices go up, which is also going to make your dollar worth less and less. The purchasing power of your dollar, it's already lost about 10 or 11% of purchasing power just this year alone, since January. And there's not a lot of people talking about that. The people know it. Yesterday, the White House, I believe it was, they came out with a number that Americans are $6,400 more wealthy this year than they were last year under the Biden administration. That they've made $6,400 more. And if you read comments from people online, I've yet to find a single person that say, yeah, that's about right. I've made $6,400 more this year than I would last year. And those that have, it's probably because of some other reason. I don't think it's because of the tariffs and all that kind of stuff, the policies. But expect that to change. Now, I want to get into something that, I don't know how to say this. It's going to sound like that I'm opposing something that sounds like a good deal. All I'm doing is it's kind of like the watchman on the wall. Sending out a warning doesn't necessarily mean these things are really bad, but I see the possibility of them getting that way under the right circumstances. So to explain what I'm talking about, One thing that's kind of been out there in the news a lot is the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. They are trying to hire as many possible agents as possible. Tens of thousands of agents to round up all these illegals, which is exactly what I've said for the last several years was going to have to happen. And I warned against it then, that you're hiring and creating tens of thousands of law enforcement that, yes, could be used to round up illegals, but also could be used for other things that the government wants it to do, maybe even against American citizens. So they're hiring, they're doing this just hiring craze. There's no age limit. I mean, if you're 90 years old, grandma, and you want to go work for ICE and round up illegals, they'll take you. Yeah, it's becoming less like your typical law enforcement job where there are certain stipulations, background checks and physical fitness and, all this kind of stuff, psychological exam. Basically, what it's sounding more and more like is, getting a job at McDonald's or Domino's Pizza. Do you have a pulse? All right, we'll hire you. In fact, there's been celebrities come out and say that they're being commissioned by ICE, and it shouldn't be too shocking seeing how it's almost like a clown show with ICE and Department of Homeland Security now getting out there and kind of almost doing a Hollywood style of promotion of what they're doing. And again, I am certainly not opposed to rounding up illegals and departing them from the United States. But in fact, that's not happening. What they're doing is they're housing them here. There's that alligator Alcatraz down in Florida, and now they've announced they're going to build another one. I believe it was up in Indiana or Ohio or something like that, the upper Midwest. And there's plans to build more. In fact, FEMA just a couple of weeks ago announced that they're spending over $600 billion to build a bunch of detention facilities in the United States for illegals, which is strange because FEMA, they don't deal with illegals. That would be either, some other department, some other area of DHS. Why not the Bureau of Prisons under the Justice Department, or, ICE, or it's strange that it's FEMA. And that's what has me a little uncomfortable with that they're doing that. Also, the president is talking about federalizing Washington, D.C., which it is a power under Congress, not the executive office, and to clean it up and potentially call in the National Guard. And he's also called up a bunch of federal agents to be moved into Washington, D.C., thousands and thousands of them, to clean up Washington, D.C., and it's become a cesspool. There's trash everywhere, graffiti everywhere, homelessness, drugs, crime, all this kind of stuff. And so I see that as a good thing, but just let's pause here for just a moment from what appears to be the obvious, that we're trying to get rid of illegals and we're trying to reduce crime and trying to clean up our streets. This path, while not always, I understand, has at times in the past been used by people to eventually kind of take over. Maybe dictators, right? We have a problem with all these illegals, so we've got to create a much larger, much more expanded federal law enforcement to go and deal with them. We've got problems in our capital city, so we've got to bring in lots and lots of law enforcement and even military and have them stationed in the capital city. And then the next thing you know, you've got tens of thousands of additional law enforcement, federal law enforcement around the country that's little by little shifting focus and stomping on American rights. And you have a capital city surrounded by federal law enforcement and military. And then you have, $600 billion being used to build detention facilities. I mean, these detention facilities don't cost that much. Even a prison shouldn't cost more than maybe $2 billion at the most. And so $600 billion, if you just do simple math, that's 300 detention facilities. Are they just going to be used to house illegals? Because I don't like the sound of that alone, because as long as they're here on U.S. soil, now they have access to our court systems and taxpayer-paid defense systems and certain constitutional rights, because the Supreme Court has upheld that. I mean, that's why we had Guantanamo and still have Guantanamo Bay, because it's outside of the United States. We stick people down there, terrorists down there, and then they don't get a taxpayer, defense attorney, and they don't get all of these rights to speedy trial and fairness and everything, because they're not technically in the United States. So what I'm saying here is that on the surface, things look acceptable, right? Detention facilities, more federal agents to deal with the illegals because it's a rampant problem. Federal agents and National Guard because crime and drugs and all this kind of stuff has gotten out of hand. It's unsafe to be in Washington, D.C. Those things seem acceptable. The problem is that history over and over has shown that man, I don't care what man it is, Donald Trump's just a man. And J.D. Vance is just a man. So even if it doesn't happen under Donald Trump, it could happen under the next presidency. We're creating a system that could so easily be turned and used on dissidents. We don't like how you believe. No. You're not towing the party line. You're not accepting the social norm. You are an outcast. And so we have all of this law enforcement in these detention facilities to put you away. Here's the thing. Before you start beating me up and saying I've lost my mind on this one, because it's a good thing that we deal with illegals and crime. It is, absolutely. But it's just a word of caution. If these things had been done under Biden, if Biden had said, you know what, yeah, these illegals, this is a problem. We're going to hire 80,000 new ICE agents. We're going to build detention facilities, and we're just going to take them down. And crimes in these major cities, we're going to call in the National Guard. Most conservatives would have lost their minds, saying that he is trying to build up, this federal army for himself, to protect himself, and to round up all the conservatives too. The only reason you're not hearing people talk about it's because it's being done under Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying that's what he's going to do. What I'm warning is that a system is being built, because I'm only speaking really of a couple of pieces to it. Now add in to tens of thousands of new federal agents and hundreds of detention facilities and National Guard patrolling the, American streets and stuff. Now add to all of that a mass surveillance system that is being built, AI controlled, drones, cryptocurrencies and things of the like, that is going to be the way that you purchase items, artificial intelligent doctors, all of this kind of stuff that is being developed. If you could step outside of what you think and believe and everything, and just kind of look at it from the outside, it looks pretty doggone scary, folks. It really does. It looks like a really bad dystopian totalitarian regime is being built. And the only reason that no one is really worried, or it seems to be, is because, well, it's being used to deal with crime and deal with illegals and deal with drugs and trafficking and all that, which are serious problems, and we need to deal with them. And I'm not saying that there is a better way. I don't know. All I'm saying is that this is something that we need to keep an eye on and see just how good the Trump administration and potentially a successor to the Trump administration is. And even if a Democrat got in, if Hillary Clinton, let's play this out. Let's say Trump hires 80,000 ICE agents and builds 200-300 detention facilities across the country, and there's National Guard in these high crime areas. He's also talking about potentially taking over New York, or not so much of, but not allowing this Islamic candidate that is trying to, that looks like he's probably going to be the next mayor of New York, of taking it over, or preventing him from getting elected, which I'm not quite sure where the constitutionality is there. But, if all of these things happened under Trump and they all went really well, but that system is in place, and then let's say Hillary Clinton gets elected. And I know that's not a likely scenario, but let's just pretend for a moment. Would you feel comfortable with Hillary Clinton having all this infrastructure, AI infrastructure, ICE agents everywhere, that are not really that trained? I mean, it doesn't appear that they're going through a lot of training that would be typical of a federal agent. It seems like they're just, oh, you want to get hired here, we'll go through some orientation training classes and boom. I mean, and it's probably not quite that easy, but it does seem from reports that it's not too difficult right now to go from getting hired to being put on the streets rounding up illegals. So all of this stuff, this infrastructure, this AI, these detention facilities, more agents, National Guard and agents guarding Washington, D.C., establishing the precedence of a president stepping in and saying a local election cannot happen, or someone that's running for office can't run, or, all this kind of stuff. Can you imagine all that precedence and infrastructure being built, and then the next president being some far left loony? It is something we need to be thinking about. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happened. I'm saying that when you step back and look at it, folks, this Agenda 2030 and reset and New World Order takeover and stuff that we've all been talking about for years and years and years, it really looks like it's being built right before our eyes, but it's being sold to the American people as dealing with crime and illegals and trafficking and drugs and homelessness. I mean, he just issued an executive order basically trying to outlaw homelessness, telling, cities to take these homeless people off the street and put them in institutions and re-education facilities. It sounds great on the surface because it's dealing with a problem. But what happens when that solution starts dealing with other problems? We need to be careful with this one, folks. Because in so many ways, if it was sold, if all of this was doing the exact same thing that it's doing right now, but it was being sold because we're rounding up white people, or we're rounding up Christians, or we're rounding up, gun-toting conservatives, well, it would sound awful. And I know those people aren't committing crimes necessarily, but right now the only thing that's making this palatable to most Americans is the optics, right? When you put all of this stuff together. And I think we should be a little concerned and be heavily watching this, and of course continually preparing for it. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.